So gentlemen, I'm back and we're gonna be talking about my friend. I'm gonna be telling you a story of a friend of mine that has a jewelry store, a very humble jewelry store that I've known for the last 40 years. Good friend of mine. We do a lot of golfing together. We do a lot of tennis playing together. We talk about politics, family, and business. All that good stuff we do. And this is his story. He's a very humble man with his shop, his jewelry shop. And he's been doing this for 40 years. And he tells me a story that the money that he's made in the last 10 years, he hasn't never made, not even close, in the last 30 years of him being in this business. And he's telling me that he made that money selling a crypto watch. He calls this watch a crypto watch. It's the Richard Mille. He calls it the crypto Richard Mille watch. You know, the watch that Generation X and millennials and crypto millionaires buy. He says that when he got introduced to this watch 13 years ago, somebody approached him and told him, do you want to make, do you want to make home run money, grand slam money? Well, this is the watch you need to sell. It's the Richard Mille. So he, 13, 15 years ago, you just scratching your head. What is this guy talking about? That I'm gonna make home run grand slam money selling this watch. That watch was the Richard Mille. So, the guy kept on talking to him about the watch. Remember, this watch looks like let's be honest, guy, this watch looks like, a toy watch, a toy watch, a Cheerios toy watch, But he finally was convinced by this gentleman and he purchased his first Richard Mille. He bought it for $60,000. He bought a Richard Mille for $60,000 and he flipped it for $120,000. My friend, he sells, like I said, he has a jewelry shop and he sells loose diamonds, necklaces, bracelets, earrings, rings, anything that has to do with jewelry and watches. And he sold, and he would never, he tells me, I sold the best diamonds, the best 4 C's in the diamond industry. I sold, and I never in my life made $60,000. And I made $60,000 profit on a crypto toy watch, as he calls it. And he was in shock. He's telling me this story. When we finished playing golf one day, we sat in the pro shop and we had a couple of beers and he told me this story. And I was pretty amazed hearing his story that he made so much money on a watch. And he says to me, I couldn't believe that I made $60,000. So I did it again. And he tells me, Juan, and I made money again. And I did it again and I made money again. This is a person that, like I said again, living a humble life, driving an ES 350 Lexus and his wife driving a C-Class Mercedes-Benz. Lived a very comfortable life, very comfortable, very, very comfortable life. But he says that, in the 40 years that he's been in this business, he's never made that kind of money ever. And it was selling Richard Mille watches. So he did it again, he made money. He did it again, he made money. And I saw my friend from driving an ES350 to driving a Ferrari. And I saw his wife from driving a Mercedes-Benz C-Class to driving a Bentley. So he started making money. And he was telling me this watch was unbelievable. This is why he says he calls it the crypto watch money watch. It's the crypto money watch. Because every youngster, he says at first it was more of the high society millionaires that wanted that watch. But then as crypto came in, it was more these young millionaire crypto millionaires that wanted this watch. And they were the ones that were buying this watch. They were the ones that they wanted it. The watch, he can get the watch for $140,000 and he can sell it for $240,000 and he's making $100,000 profit. He was in shock. He says to me, it was like, he felt like I was in the, he says he felt like he was in the underworld, selling something in the underworld, something that wasn't, something that was, he felt like he was selling something illegal, but it was legal. He was selling a watch that was legal. It was the real thing. It wasn't no, how can I say, it wasn't, he wasn't selling, how can I say this? He wasn't selling narcotics. He wasn't selling something that he was selling something real, something good, you know, something that was legit. And he couldn't believe that he was making that amount of money. He felt like, he says he felt like Tony Montana. He felt like Carlito's Way. You know Carlito's Way? That's how he felt, because he was making so much money. So he kept on going, and he says to me, Juan, there was a moment there that I was making $200,000 in a watch. That's all I had to do. That's all I had to do. I mean, if I sold one of those watches in a month and I made $200,000 profit, I'm fine. He's telling me all this story. And I said, oh my God, for real? Let's call him Charlie, okay? For real, Charlie? He said, yeah. And I says, I'm making all this money. I'm making all this money. I'm making, you know, $200,000 a month. You figure that out. From a little shop in a corner. This is this person telling me all this story. He says to me, and he says to me, and I gotta tell you, this watch is basically the same thing. To me, these watches are like brothers and nephews and grandparents. He compares it to the Hublet. You know, he says the only problem with Hublet is that there's no meat left in the bone to make money. So that's why everybody just dogs the watch Hublet, that is no good, that is no good, that is no good. But if you put them together, you know, right there at par, they're basically the same watches, you know. You know, he tells me that the Richard Mille watches has this you know, this how can I call that has this material, and he says that, you know, that special material they call it has. And so, oh, you're talking about that they say it has the STD material. You know, the STD, NTP, STP. I call it the STD, you know, the bad infection it has. But he says, you know, it has this special material, they call it the NTP, and people go nuts with that. You know, it's come on, you know, you look at the Richard Mille and you look at a Hublet, and it's basically, you know, they're cousins, they're nephews, they're brothers, you know. But nobody wants a Hublet because it's basically a dog with fleas, you know. There's no meat left in the bone, so there's a lot of meat left in the Richard Mille, so that's why you see everybody promoting, you know that guy, that chubby guy that looks like the Penguin, you know, he looks like Danny DeVito, that he says he hates Hublet. Of course he hates Hublet. I would hate it too. There's no meat left in the bone to make money on that watch, on Hublet. That's why everybody hates it. And he hates it and he screams, you know, he's kind of short and chubby, and he screams, you know. Well, he says he hates Hublet, but he's right. He hates it for a reason, because there's no money, there's no meat left in the bone to make money on that watch. That's why he hates it, you know. That's the guy, you know, from over there somewhere, you know, real far. He says it all the time that he hates Hublet, and he's right. He should hate it. There's no meat left in the bone to make money on that watch, the Hublet. So he hates it. So my friend tells me that's why everybody hates the Hublet. So, you know, I said, oh my God, so you made all that money? Yeah, I made all that money on Richard Mille. But there's a problem. Right now, Richard Mille is dead. Like you say, is dead in a backyard pool and floating face down. Can you imagine? My friend is using my quote and telling me that Richard Mille watches are dead in a backyard pool and floating face down like this. Unbelievable. My friend is telling me that. I can't tell you his name because this is a secret. You know, this is like the Freemason, like the Illuminati. You know, the Illuminati. You know, we can't be, you know, telling you who this person is that made all these millions of dollars selling Richard Mille watches. But he says right now they're dead in water. That's right. Richard Mille watches are dead in water. That's what he's telling me, that Richard Mille watches are dead in water. And he also is telling me that Richard Mille watches are just the same as a Hublet watch. They're brothers. They're brothers. Richard Mille watches and Hublet are brothers. The only difference, he tells me, Juan, is that one doesn't have meat left in the bone and the other one had some meat left in the bone because the watch is just dropping. dropping and dropping. Richard Mille watches, he's telling me, are dropping every day. But then he tells me the real big problem. He says, but I have a big problem. I have like 35 of those pieces. I have like 35 Richard Mille watches. And I can't even give them away now. I can't even give them. I'm trying to, he's telling me, I'm trying to sell them at my cost. And it's a hard time for me to sell them at my cost right now. You know, and he tells me, it's a better investment for these newbie rich crypto millionaires, if they're still out there, because they're not out there anymore, but if they are, you're better, he's telling me, you're better off buying a Hublet, buying it, an example, for $20,000, and the day you're gonna sell it, you sell it for $7. So $7, you bought it for $20, and you're selling it out for $7, you lost $13,000. You're better off doing that than buying a Richard Mille for $400,000. And the day you want to sell it for $100,000. That's what's happening with Richard Mille watches at this moment, he's telling my friend. My friend that made millions of dollars selling Richard Mille is telling me right now that Richard Mille watches are dead in water. Dead and floating like this. That's right. And he's telling me you're better off buying a Hublet, you're safer. You lose just probably, if you pay 20 for Hublet, you're gonna sell it out for 7, you lost 13, versus a Richard Mille that you bought for 400, and you're gonna sell it now the day you wanna sell it for $100,000. $300,000 loss against a $13,000 loss. And I'm telling you, he's telling me both watches are about the same thing. The only thing is that the Richard Mille has going for them is that they say it has this new material called, like you call it, one, the STD, the infection. That's right. I don't call it the NTP. I call it the STD. That's what I call it. That's what that Richard Mille watch has. That new material that they say NTP, it has the STD infection. So he's telling me that Richard Mille watches are dead in water. So if you guys are thinking of buying Richard Mille watches, think about my friend's story. He made a lot of money. He made millions of dollars, as he's told me. But he has 35 Richard Mille watches, and he can't give them away, not even at cost, at what he bought them for, because they're dead. They're dead in water. So that's the story of my friend. He made a lot of money, like I told you again, you know, from driving an ES350 Lexus to driving a Ferrari, and his wife from driving a C-Class Mercedes-Benz to driving a Bentley. And now he's telling me his story, that he has all these Richard Mille watches that he doesn't know what to do. And you know what else he told me? He told me, he says to me, Juan, to be honest, I made this money and I'm happy that I made all this money, but I believe the Richard Mille watches are gonna end up being exactly like Hublet. I hope you like this story that I talked to you about, the story that I told you. Like I said again, I can't be telling you my friend's name because this is, you know, this is Illuminati stuff, you know, Mason stuff. You know, we can't be doing that, you know. We can't be telling you who it is. I wish I can tell you who it is so you can go buy his 35 Richard Mille watches, but I can't do that. Well, I hope you learned something from Richard Mille watches, where they're heading to. They're dead in water, like my friend is telling me. He made all this money, but he knows that this watch is basically, it's just a passing by fever, that the fever is gonna get cold. Oh no, it's getting cold already. So be very careful if you are thinking of purchasing a Richard Mille watches. He's telling me they're dead in water, and he has 35 of them to sell. I believe him. I believe everything he had to tell me. I believe that watch is just a big fad that is about to die out any moment. I hope you enjoy what I had to say about my friend's story on Richard Mille watches. Be careful. That watch is dead in the backyard pool, floating face down like this. Okay? Well, gentlemen, I really hope you enjoy what I had to say this week. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like my video. And like I say every week, take care and brush your hair.